Ready to start. It's 9 o'clock Eastern, and it is 6 o'clock Pacific. We're going to start the uHIT Academy seminar. So we've got Ryan Harrison from Slow the Game Down here. So we're going to be talking a lot about vision training tonight. We're going to talk about NDV. We're going to talk about Slow the Game Down. These are two enterprises that Ryan works on. Now, Ryan is the son of Bill Harrison. Some of you may know from quite a bit of work that's been done over the years in baseball vision, vision training, and sports vision training more broadly. His dad, who unfortunately passed away about a year and a half ago, left a tremendous legacy that Ryan is carrying forward now. And we're going to talk to Ryan about Slow the Game Down tonight. We're going to talk about uHIT, which is kind of another form of not really vision training necessarily, but it's more specifically applied to baseball and softball. We're going to also talk about really kind of what has happened lately with uHIT as well, and give you all an opportunity to engage with uHIT in various ways that are really exclusive to people who attend our seminars, being able to engage with our customized AI training. So one last thing we will touch on tonight are our coach certification programs, which I think may be of interest to some of the parents and or coaches that have joined us tonight, some of whom have already done the coach certification. So Ryan, I'd like to toss it over to you to introduce NDV, to introduce Slow the Game Down, and keep in mind that we have had some questions sent in to us by people who've registered for the event. And if you all have any additional questions as the night goes on here, use the button at the bottom of your screen, hover over at the bottom, it'll say chat, and that will open up a window to the right. And keep an eye on that chat as the night goes on. I'll do my best to do that as well. We'll be able to ask Ryan some questions. You can ask them directly to me too about uHIT. So Ryan, I'll let you take it away and tell us about NDV and tell us about Slow the Game Down.
Yeah, Jason, I appreciate it. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining. If you guys, want to put your video on, great. If not, I'm good with that too. But it's a lot easier sometimes. So Jason, I will have this little conversation. We'll look at each other.
Right.
Giving you a little bit of background, I've been trained visual performance skills for the last 20 years. But at the same time, I was born with it. It really comes back, like Jason said, to my father, who started in 1971 working with the Kansas City Royals and kind of George Brett. And that was kind of the beginning of his introduction to baseball that spanned 50 years. And so, I heard it as a kid, but, like most of us, we don't listen to our dads real well until we grow up and go, God, my dad knows something. I should have listened to him when I was younger. And, he asked me about 20 years ago to go to spring training with him. And at that time, my degree is exercise physiology from UC Davis. I played baseball growing up. I played football in college. And I went out there and saw how the players at the time was the Royals, the Reds, and the Braves, those three teams. And I saw how they were taking in the information from him and just, wanted more information, and they were applying it, and they were talking about seeing the ball like they've never seen before. And actually one player was Carlos Beltran. He was had just won Rookie of the Year, and he talked about how great he was seeing the ball from what he learned from my dad. And I'm like, I guess my dad does know something. So I better start listening to him. So, that's where my background started 20 years ago up to today. Probably worked with 13 different major league teams, maybe more than that. A lot of collegiate teams. Do a lot in baseball and softball, but I do have athletes from hockey players to tennis players to race car drivers, even MMA fighters and track and field guys. And what we look at is what that visual demand is. And so I'm kind of split personality with two companies, and Slow the Game Down is the company I started with my dad. And this is what we still are. This is what we brand, and this is what we're trying to do is really, teach players and athletes how to slow the game down. What NDV is our new entity, which oversees Slow the Game Down, is really neurodynamic vision. And it's really about the education and development of neurodynamic vision to be more of a language that everyone talks about across the country. Just like strength and conditioning, you know, even back when my dad started, you know, strength and conditioning wasn't really that big of a deal. It wasn't, you know, a lot of teams didn't do it. The Royals at the time were ahead of it. They had what they called the Kansas City Royals Baseball Academy, and they were using tires for bands back then, and they were doing things with eyes and things with just things that weren't done in baseball at the time. And now it's more of a mainstream strength and conditioning, stretching, all the weight lift, you know, all those things. And as you know, the brain is something that people tend to stay away from. And when I talk about the brain and the eyes, you know, the eyes are the brain, and it's the windows that's to the brain, and it's one of the major sense organs of the brain, and it's a dominant sense when it comes to playing these sports, because we don't go through feeling, we don't go through smelling, tasting baseball. It's really about how we perceive visual information and how we respond to that visual information. So when it comes to, you know, the eyes and the brain, and you and I have talked about this, Jason, it's kind of a foreign thing for people to understand. And I get it, because, you know, when you look at every university in this world, in this country, they're all studying the brain, and yet there's still, and you probably have better understand this, is the fighting that goes on between one department and another department of what the brain's really doing. And so as a coach or as a parent, you know, we're trying to figure out, how do we get this system to work better if no one else even knows how the system works really well? But at the same time, we know that seeing the ball is important, yet we spend all our time on swinging and lifting and talking about the mechanics, because it's easy to look at and manipulate, where the eyes and the brain are tougher, you know, subject to manipulate and understand what's going on.
Yeah, yeah, no, and I think, I mean, you touched on a lot of great stuff there, Ryan. I mean, particularly, I think the topic about learning how smart your dad really is. I saw a couple of people nodding on that one, and it kind of reminds me of the Mark Twain quote about, you know, when I was 8 years old, I thought my dad was an idiot, and by the time I was 18, I was surprised to see how much he had learned in just 10 years.
Yeah,
It's
it's really true. And
but
even
you know,
now,
it's I think you're absolutely right too about what you said about, you know, in universities and academia around the country and in even other parts of the world, you know, there are these artificial boundaries really that emerge. I mean, I know this because, you know, I came out of a PhD in engineering and then jumped right into biomedical engineering and neuroscience. And you know, you've got the people who do clinical neurology and the people that do engineering neuroscience, and never the twain shall meet. And even at this university, in Augusta University on the East Coast, they were separated by 5 miles, which is it's a mammoth distance in that city of New York.
yeah,
So, you know, it's as a parent, as a coach, how do you decipher this information, right? You know when it's not there, right? But it's much easier, like you said, to tweak a swing or to lift weights. Or, you know, we talked about ahead of this seminar, the kind of approach of working skills with, you know, blood, sweat, and tears, right? Because if you work harder, you should get a better result. But, you know, when it comes to vision training, when it comes to how the brain works with the eyes, right? It's not necessarily that if you're sweating, you're doing the right thing, right? And so these are the kind of things that I think, you know, is exciting to me about NDV with neurodynamic vision as an educational program, to try to teach more people about the role of the brain, the role of vision in sports, and how it all connects together. Because I mean, there are you know, countless stories about some of the greatest athletes of our time: Wayne Gretzky, Michael Jordan, you know, Jerry Rice, you know, who repeatedly would say, like, you know, all right, Michael Jordan was a great athlete, but he wasn't always the tallest, he wasn't always the fastest, he couldn't always jump the highest, right? But he read situations. Wayne Gretzky would talk about the same thing. And so what we're trying to do, I think at uHIT, and what you guys are trying to do with NDV and Slow the Game Down, is measure that for a player, quantify it for them, give them a baseline, right? And give them a trajectory that they can follow that is customized to them, to customized to their specific needs. And, you know, and I want to hear more about I mean, in COVID land, we've all had to do things virtually that we wouldn't do otherwise. So I do want to hear about that in a minute, Ryan, kind of what you guys have been doing there. For anyone else who's on the call who's you know, not really seen how uHIT works, really gotten a sense about, you know, what is uHIT, what is it doing with my brain, how is it measuring my brain, that kind of stuff. I'm just going to give you a quick kind of visual overview so that you do have a sense kind of how it works. For many of you, this will be a review, but for the new people, I think I want to get everyone on the same page, just so they know what we're talking about here. So we're showing on screen here, you know, what happens when you come into uHIT. You know, we'll customize how you know, what your hitting vision goals are. You tell us if you're a righty or a lefty. And then this is a really important stopping point here. This is Coach uHIT up here. He guides you through your assessment. He guides you through your customized training, whether it's strike zone recognition or whether it's pitch recognition, which we'll look at a little bit later. Right here, we're snooping in on one of our former minor leaguers, now recently major league player, Jared Oliva. And, you know, he's on his third round of strike zone recognition. But it's as simple as just, you know, tapping that customized training I want to work on, and then you're launched right into the game, which has in-screen tutorials to show you like how many pitches you've got left in the inning, how your points are doing in terms of the thresholds that you have to meet to go to the next level of your training. And then, you know, how to do this kind of like VR effect, which you'll see in a second. As you move the phone, you can really have this feeling like you're up at the plate. And so here, what you're doing is just tapping as quickly as possible for balls that are in that green part of the zone, just working on the middle and lower part of the zone here. But you get to see the pitch trajectory. You get to see whether you were correct or not in terms of whether you tapped on time or not. And the faster you do it, the more accurately you do that, the more you progress in your customized training. And so Coach uHIT is the one who, you know, guides you through all of that. But what we're doing here is, you know, it's made to look like a video game, but this is actually really like how we quantified how the brain is predicting where these pitches are going to go and how well you're able to do that and how quickly you're able to do that, because we saw that translates to what happens on the field. So that's just to give everybody, put everybody on the same plane to start off with in terms of knowing what uHIT is and kind of how it works, how it shows you when you're making decisions, you know, in zone, out zone, and correctly and incorrectly. So Ryan, I'd like to hear from you a little bit about Slow the Game Down, what you guys are doing now, virtual training wise, an 8-week program that you guys are doing. I think you told me about. Can you give somebody who's not really had a background in Slow the Game Down kind of what you guys are doing right now?
Yeah, I think you know, a good point too is just to add to what you just showed there is the brain is malleable and changeable, and we can build upon that. And it is amazing what this brain can and can't do. And there's not a lot that it can't do. It's a lot of what it can do when we direct it in the right way. And you know, having that ability to work on looking at different kinds of trajectories and looking at tracking and understanding zones is, you know, you're programming yourself for the future. And you know, when we look at vision and the brain, it's really, you know, we look at, there is the medical side of the brain, or I'm sorry, medical side of the eyes. There are the skill sets of how we train those different things, how we train visual accuracy, depth perception, speed of recognition, speed of processing. I could go on forever on that. And then it's really about how you go and apply it on the field. And so, you know, there's so many variety of things that kids, athletes, you know, from major league to you know, young levels can do to add a visual neural component to their training to be better. And you know, some of the things that you asked what we were doing is in the virtual world, you know, we have this facility that you see behind us where we do a lot of training, and we got a lot of expensive equipment, a lot of different things there, but not everyone can get to it. Not everyone can do it in this time period. And so we've tried to create things where in a virtual world where we can do things like this, where we do instruction and training virtually. So we'll go over some of these topics of visual skill sets that need to, and how they apply to their sport, and then send them home for the week to do an exercise plan. And they got things that they can work on, things they follow up on. The following week, we reconvene about where they were, talk about a new topic, talk about how, new exercises that they're going to go on, so that they keep building on, and create an 8-week, well, kind of call like a beginner visual performance plan and program that they can continue on down the road and add to their skill sets.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah, and I think actually that kind of segues well to, I mean, I have, a lot of topics that I want to ask you about, but I want to pivot to a question that we got sent in to us by a coach, looks like in Washington State, softball, it seemed. He was asking specifically about, kind of what techniques. You talked about that a player will get a plan that they follow, right? But they don't always follow it. So what techniques do you guys use that slow the game down to, he asked, help players stay on top of their vision training? Practice, the routine of practice is one thing, but when it comes to poster boards and even something electronic that they do at home, or in person, and in person being limited, how do you get players to stay on top of their training? What are some techniques?
That's a probably multi-million-dollar question, right? That you're asking there. And especially as a father, you're always trying to get your kids to do stuff, and they're not doing what they need to do. I think, in a sense, a couple of answers here, but one of my secrets is making it fun, make it enjoyable. And it goes back to your original comment that we talked about, is blood, sweat, and tears. People, if they're not sweating, they're not feel like they're getting that thing. So if we can combine, make it fun, make it interactive, we get a lot of buy-in from that side of things. And also, obviously, when you see major league guys talk about it and see it, that's a big deal. Then you got a motivation to get there. One of the things we've been working on is a player management system that puts the exercises in a app that they can go in and see their exercise program. And this is part of our 8-week, but we're building for down the road for more stuff in it. And they can go in and check off. They can see how they're doing. They can see, competition's always good. And that's one thing, Jason, I know you got good going on with the uHIT, is it's showing them their levels of where they can get to. But, it's not as easy as saying, look, this is your level. We got to, it goes back to this education and encouraging them. First of all, a question that, I don't know, we got coaches, we had parents in here, but these parents should be asking one question, and these coaches, and it should be, how well did you see the ball? Okay. Not did you see it or not, but how well did you see it? And then a follow-up question will be, well, why? Why did you see it? Were you thinking about something? Were you focused? Were you looking at, whatever, the second baseman? Where were you? Where was your mindset to not be visually focused on that task at hand? Mm-hmm. And once people can buy into understanding that it's first and foremost vision, then they have to ask themselves, what can I do to improve my vision? And the problem with that statement, Jason, is people don't know they can see better until they see better. And
that's right.
We have issues. I got issues with my kids. I've got issues with pro athletes, even a pro athlete I have right now. I don't tell him everything he's got wrong with his vision. He's a kind of a post-concussion vision issue because he doesn't understand it, and he doesn't want to understand it. He thinks he just wants to get better, So they need to understand what that there is. Why put a limit on what we see? Try to figure out how we can see better and more efficiently. And, even I'll bring this up. When it comes to the medical side of vision, when people go in for an eye exam, and Jason, you're probably like this, you got your glasses on there, is you don't like to be told you need stronger prescription. You're going in there trying to succeed. You're trying to do the best you can and try to get, and no, I don't want that doctor giving me more, a higher prescription. I don't want to change anything. Instead of going, you know, it doesn't matter for you and I necessarily, but for a guy who's trying to get better, they should be going in, hey, doc, what can make my vision to be even better? What makes me the best? I mean, I could see this, but is there a way I can see this better? Is there something, like if I put something on, or if I exercise my eyes, or if I took a nutrient, or if I did whatever it is they're not asking those questions to say, hey, how can I see better? What can I do? And, you know, sometimes it is the medical side of it, and sometimes it's the skill side of it, and sometimes it's the tactical side. They don't even know where to look.
Yep. Yeah, no, and it's I think that's this kind of educational piece for parents, for coaches, you know, is really you know, the important element here, because, you know, for the players, like you said, they just want to do better, right? And you know, it's I think having that kind of guidance from a dad, from a mom, from a coach, is really going to help them get there. But if the dad, the mom, the coach don't know themselves kind of the difference between working on a swing or you know, working on your vision, then that message isn't going to get through. It does remind me, actually, though, to point out at this juncture, though, what we've been doing to kind of help this educational process is offering a coach certification on uHIT. So I'm going to put in the chat for any of the parents and the coaches who are on now a link to the curriculum that we have and the exam there. Usually to get the credential, it's only $35, but if you do it during today's session, we do give you $15 off. So it's those links will be in the chat right now, both for baseball and for softball. But a big piece to the curriculum, and it's kind of something that we've tried to work hard to do, because I think one of the nice things about being in New York is that you're around a lot of journalists. One of the bad things about being in New York is you're around a lot of journalists, right? But in terms of the nice part of it, we did have, like, you know, various other people asking us questions about, you know, what are you measuring, and how does this work? And so we had to go through that exercise that most people in academia never want to go through, which is explaining how their stuff works. And so the output of that is put into this curriculum where, you know, there are interviews with Washington Post, ESPN, Brian Kenny on MLB Network. So any parent, any coach that wants to learn more about some of this background, so that they can explain it to their son, so that they can explain it to their daughter at that key juncture when it's like, why am I doing this? Right? Why am I tapping these things on the poster? Why am I playing this what looks like a video game on my phone when I should be having a bat in hand and I should be sweating it out in the cage, right? Because I'm seeing everybody sweating it out on Twitter with videos that they put up of their swings in the cage. Why aren't I doing that too? And this is really the kind of material that we put into the coach certification curriculum that explains to you, like, how to explain it to your son, how to explain it to your daughter, and how to explain it to your players when you're a coach. The topic really about, like, you know, the parents' involvement, I think, was something also that we, you know, really spoke more of, Ryan, and I wanted to, you know, dive into that a little bit more. Particularly, you know, the difference between, like, working on vision versus, like, my arm is injured, or working on vision and I need to make some adjustments to my swing. Can you talk a little bit about, like, some stories you've seen over the years with players who, you know, you could see very clearly that they were not seeing, you know, contrast sensitivity, or they weren't seeing movement, or, you know, whatever other aspect of predicting where a pitch is going to go. And instead they started playing around with their swing, or then they started playing around with something that led to an injury. You know, can you pull on any stories over the years that you've come across there that can
We
kind
don't
of
have enough time to tell all these stories, Jason. There's a lot of those on there. I can figure out which one to pull. And it is the first question that people think about is, you know, there's something wrong with my swing. And, you know, a lot of coaches will tell you, look, if you can see the ball accurately, identify it properly, may not really matter how good your swing is. I mean, you got to have some ability, you know, but there's some people out there that have some phenomenal swings, but it's like they just can't touch the ball consistently. They're inconsistent. And, you know, I think, unfortunately, when it comes to, like, the big leagues, sometimes, you know, we want to mimic these guys, but these guys are strong, and they can do some incredible things that the youth can't do, or the college kid can't do yet. They're not there strength-wise, brain-wise, all the different things, you know. And as you know, the brain matures as we get older and older on there. And, you know, there's so many times that I hear, you know, I'm seeing the ball okay, but I'm just, you know, missing the ball. I'm just, you know, in fact, actually, here's a good one. I had a player tell me, a minor league player, when I was working with the team, said, Ryan, I'm seeing the ball so good, I'm just swinging at bad pitches. And I looked at him, I said, yeah, he has no idea what it means to see the ball well on there, okay? And he didn't want to, because he just thought it was about being big and swing, you know, as hard as you can to be as efficient as you can.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, most of these guys, when they have success, when you watch them interview after the game and they say, what are you doing differently? They'll say, I'm seeing the ball really well. Ball looks like a beach ball. They don't talk about, I got my elbow in the right direction, or I did this. More times than not, it's, you know, I'm seeing it really good.
Yeah.
And some players, it's hard for them to explain, because you do have players, great players, that see it so good. I had a player this last off season that is very successful. And I looked at his eyes, and we did some measurements. We checked some things out. And I looked at him and I said, one, you don't need me. Two, I said, people don't understand what you see. When you talk to your teammates and you tell them what you see, they think you're crazy, don't they? And he looks at me and goes, yeah, they do. You know, but he has that ability to recognize the spin, the fingers, this, and there's not, you know, not everyone can do it, but this guy can. And it's amazing. And then you got a guy that will say, oh, it doesn't matter, I just swing it, you know, whatever's coming at me. And you kind of go, okay, wait a minute, there's a disconnect there.
Right.
And the players who are the most consistent have a visual plan. And, you know, more times than not, and I'm bouncing around a little bit, back to this search, we search for the swing. And I always tell these players, this is the cycle of hitting. When you're going good, this game's fun. They enjoy it. And then what they all try to do is they try to become Superman or Superwoman and try to hit the ball farther than anywhere. And they start missing. And then they start working on their swing. They go off the tee. They ask coach, what's going on? They go to the video room. They look at all these things and they work, and they still suck. They can't buy a hit. Everything just horrible. And then obviously the mental side comes into that. And then they decide, you know what? I'm just going to see it and put it in play. And they do it, and they had success. And then they get kind of happy. They do it again. And then they start feeling comfortable again. They're confident. Okay, I got it back, and they're hitting real well. And then they decide to become Superman or Superwoman again, and they start swinging for the fences.
Yep.
And it's these peaks and valleys that they all have on there. And the valleys tend to be searching for feel, searching for mechanics, searching for all that stuff until they get, I give up. I'm just going to see the ball the best I can. I'm going to put a good swing on it, and I'm going to let whatever happens.
Yeah.
And that's when they tend to climb up and get there to be a better level.
Yeah. No, that actually touches on a question that we had from one of our players in Dominican Republic who wrote in. He specifically asked about, you know, how do you slow down the pitch recognition when hitting at a major league level, right? And I think it sounds like what you're saying is that it's the same really whether you're at the major league level or you're at college or you're at high school or, you know, in your little league. It's that, you know, when you're able to slow the game down, the speed of the ball doesn't really matter anymore, right? Because you're seeing in such a way, and I can speak to it from the neuroscience perspective, is what your brain is doing is feeding back down to your eyes and telling you, based on what you've already seen, this is what's going to happen next. And so your experience of that, like you're describing with the beach ball or slowing the game down, is that your experience is that the ball looks bigger or that the ball looks slower. And so it doesn't necessarily matter whether it's a major league level pitch or whether it's, you know, a slower pitch. I mean, obviously you can get away with more things when the pitch is slower, but, you know, that experience of the game slowing down is really, you know, what the players describe. we've tried to communicate that in various ways. And one thing that we've seen, and I want to, share it with everyone here. One thing we've seen that really helps explain to players like where they started and then where they are now and where they're going and how it relates to what they do in the game is utilizing our coach tracking dashboard to show the player, like, whatever the assessment is. I mean, in Slow the Game Down, I mean, I'm sure there are baseline assessments that you guys have. And, in ours, it's what is your accuracy of calling different pitches? What is your reaction time of going for pitches in the zone? And when we can show the player, like, I'm kind of picking on Kelly here. She's from a university in St. Louis, or in Missouri, that's been working with uHIT. But I'm only picking on her because she's an example of a player where we can very easily say, this is what the assessment was. And then we can point to after she's done some customized training with her pitch recognition. Now, keep in mind, lefty and righty sides of the plate. And she can very clearly see, oh, I'm at 77 now after doing 23 sessions, right? And more importantly, she can see, all right, where does that 77 come from? And what was driving initially my 51, right? Why was I basically guessing 50-50, whether it was a drop ball or not, or whether it was a curveball or not? Well, the favorite pitch of all softball pitchers is the rise ball. The least favorite pitch of all softball hitters is the rise ball. And you see it here too, where, now after, in Kelly's case, she goes through the customized training, the pitches adjust really to her level. And you start to see that rise ball accuracy is the one that really is pushing up. And it's much more even now when you look across the different pitch types. And as I think generic softball language as this is, drop balls, curve balls, rise balls, right? What it's telling us on a neurodynamic vision kind of level is that the drop ball and the rise ball are really the equivalents in baseball of fastballs and curveballs when it comes to vertical movement. So that's a measurement for us of a vertical perceptual threshold, how quickly you can tell that something is moving up and down. And similarly, in the case of the curveball in softball, there's more horizontal movement, just like a slider in baseball, which tells us also there how much threshold you have for horizontal movement. And what we've seen from doing this kind of work with major league level, minor league level, is that there is a direct correlation to the accuracies for these types of pitches, these kind of vertical and horizontal thresholds, to things like strikeout rate. The less you can tell the horizontal movement or the vertical movement, the more strikeouts you get. So we try to use this as a visual tool to be able to tell the player, like, this is where you were, this is where you are now, right? And that, to give them a guide in terms of where they're being held back, and where they're making progress on their own. And that's kind of this, self-generative mechanism really to keep them moving through it. In the case of this college, the coach did what has kind of been an unprecedented thing for us, which is they asked all the players what they thought about uHIT. And this particular player said something I've never heard before. And, I'm not trying to glorify uHIT here, but I think I want to really highlight the fact, like you said, Ryan, you don't know you can't see until you can see. And I think what this player said really speaks to that. She said, uHIT has helped me in ways I never thought would be possible. That's kind of like the, I don't know I can't see until I can see. My favorite assessments to do are pitch recognition, because I think it's helped in the cage to be able to realize what's coming at me more. And there were several other players, who gave us similar kind of responses to this. But I think, I'm not, rather than trying to glorify uHIT, what I'm trying to do is explain or show how players try to put this into words when they get it, right? And that's what I think we're shooting for. That's what NDV is shooting for. That's what I think every player, every parent of a player is shooting for, and every coach, is how do you communicate that thing that is so hard to communicate? In this case, what's going on between the ears and going on behind the eyes, that translates into balls going over the fence or line drives going through the gap. So, those are really I think the challenges here. And, I think this group being able to get together and, hear and talk about these topics and learn from each other is really the stepping stone to that. So I'm going to put a couple of other links in the chat for people to be able to take the next step, with this kind of knowledge, with our customized training. Again, special deal during the seminar that if you do start tonight, the usual, it's $8 a month for lefty, righty, pitch and zone recognition, lefty and righty zone pitch recognition. So 32 total. But you get the first month off free if you sign up tonight during the seminar. So we'll put those links in the chat for you right now. While I'm doing that, I do want to pivot to another question that we had come in. Now, this was from a softball, mother of a softball player in Colorado, Tracy. Tracy asked me by email, how do you teach players the difference between physical training, right? Weightlifting, running, conditioning, those kind of things, and visual training. Like, how do you structure this for them? How do you communicate it to them? How do you kind of weigh the importance? I know we've touched on this, but if you were talking to Tracy tonight, her, mother of a softball player, how would you explain it to her, Ryan?
I think one thing to think about, and this kind of ties in a lot of stuff we're talking about here, is, have you had success? Have you had failure? And every athlete's going to say, yeah, I've had both. And when we talk about failure, which no one likes to think about, but when you're struggling at the plate, or you're struggling on the field, or you're struggling wherever, what do you think about? And they'll all say, I'm thinking about a lot of stuff. And how does your body feel? Is it comfortable or stiff or out of whack? And they'll all say it's not good. How well do you see things? Oh, it looks like that little ping pong ball shooting at me. It's a missile coming at me. Now, on the other side, when you're going good, and you're thinking, what are you thinking about? Oh, nothing. I'm just having fun. It's great. Okay. And what do you feel when you're going good? Nothing. Everything's loose, and it's just, my swing, just everything feels great. And how well do you see things? Oh, it looks like the moon. It looks like a beach ball. So when you're at your best, you see things really well. You don't think and you don't feel. When you struggle, you think too much, you feel too much, and you don't see very well. So we have to find out is, how can we see really well? And what does it mean to see really well? And once we can learn that, then we can know how to apply it. And a simple thing might be able to say, and you guys can do this, and we got one video, we got a kid can do this. We put one finger out in front and one finger close to your nose and one finger far away. And if you look at the close finger, what I ask them is, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you see it? And they'll say, I see it like a 10. I said, okay, as you look at that, can you see the back finger? They say, yeah, I can see it. Okay, on a scale of 1 to 10, how well do you see it? And you see it like a 2 or a 3. And then you can go back and go look at the far finger, and you'll see it like a 10, and the near finger is like a 2 or a 3. Now, it doesn't mean you didn't see both fingers, but there's a difference in quality of how well you're seeing things. And so what a lot of people will say is, yeah, I see the ball. I see the ball good. And what they're really seeing is color and motion. And they're not seeing detail and spin and all that stuff. That's when we see things really well. And when we can learn to see like that, now the swing knows you have better information to swing the bat at. If you're just swinging at motion and color, you're just reaching and hoping that you run into something. And we're good enough that we can do it, but knowing how to do it and how to do it consistently, it's not easy. We get knocked off, but we know that the importance of, we got to figure out how we can see the ball really well, and then we can see it and let our bat do the work.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think these are the various aspects to vision that you're talking about here when it comes to hitting a baseball, right? We, one of the things that we, when we did the research using EEG and MRI back at Columbia University, we were given really kind of an unprecedented look into what are these various aspects of deciding where the thing is going to go, whether it's going to kill you, and whether you should swing at it or not. The three things that Bobby Valentine described hitting as. And, what that showed us was that there is an aspect of, when you say like how well you see the ball, contrast sensitivity, the red lines of the seams against the white of the ball, or the yellow of the softball. There's an aspect even of the color, like you mentioned, when you have certain pitches that are spinning so quickly, and the seams are, excuse me, like a fastball, let's say, spinning in such a way that it kind of makes a pink color of the ball in baseball, or the famous dot on the bottom of a slider. So, these are aspects of, contrast recognition, color recognition. So these are all different parts of the brain that do these types of things, different parts of the brain that do like motion recognition, predicting where things are going to go. And then, the real nut of it all is that then all these areas have to talk together in the brain, and then communicate with the parts of the brain that decide I'm going to swing or not, or where I'm going to swing, and how quickly I'm going to swing. And so, being able to pick apart ability to recognize color, being able to react to contrast, right? Dynamic contrast. These are all things that are all being merged together in a half a second or less. And then you've got to integrate that with your hands, with your body deciding to, actually generate the swing. So, that all adds up to little bits of a percent here and there. And that's something that we talked about beforehand, Ryan. I wanted to, to expound on that a bit more, that these are all different tools. They're all different aspects of hitting, right? Whether it's slow the game down, whether it's uHIT, whether it's, some other pitch recognition tools like Game Sense, or like VR, like in Win Reality, whatever it is, these are all different. Like it's like 1%, 2%, and then another tool is another 1%, 2%. And all that starts to add up to give a player an edge over another player, and to get to that experience of it being fun, right? Because when you're hitting, it's fun, right? And so, can you talk more about, kind of that way that, there's 1% here, there's maybe a 2% here, and kind of slow the game down, how you guys do that and make that available to your players?
Yeah, I'm going to bounce around a little bit. I'm going to go back to the spot on the slider that you brought up. My dad talked about that in the early 70s and told the famous Charlie Lau that there's a spot on the slider. And Charlie said, no, there's not. There's no way. And he showed Charlie how to pick that up. And Charlie was like, dang, learn how to see it. So, a lot of people don't see that stuff because they don't know where to look, how to look, or they may not have the eyes to do it. And I think, Jason, if I had a magic wand, I'd want to get every kid in a good evaluation at a younger age, because I think some kids fall out of sports because they don't have the visual abilities naturally. Now, the cool thing is it can be developed. So it can be cleaned up. It can be, I don't want to call it fixed, but there are things that some people are missing. And some people think it's just about wearing contact lenses or glasses. But there's a variety of these skills that we're talking about: this contrast, depth perception, binocularity, recognition skills, eye-hand coordination, all these different things. And there's a lot of fun tools that can be utilized for it. Some of them are marketed poorly because they say this is the eye-hand magic pill, and you're going to be able to hit 1 million, percent after you take this pill, but it doesn't work that way. And, going back on my dad, one of the things he had this dream of is what he called a sensory expansion gym. And it's just like the strength and conditioning, but for the eyes and the brain and the senses, really. I say eyes because I'm biased to that, but it's really about the brain and the cognitive visual gym. And, more and more things are coming out today, and it's a combination. And whether it's uHIT or Game Sense or WinVR or I could probably come up with an optics trainer. There's a bunch of different little visual games that might be around. Or look, it might be right. It may not be right. We got to explore to find the right answers. Now, sometimes those right answers is just giving them that confidence of focusing on the ball. And even you're bringing up, I think it was the softball player earlier, how she felt after she's working the uHIT. Well, part of it is when she goes into the cage, she has this mindset of, I need to focus on what I'm seeing.
Right.
Because that's what I was doing in the training. Now I need to go do it in the real life world. And I remember something we did in the past with a player, and the player, his response was, man, this is like hitting in the cage when I'm not able to hit in the cage. And it was because he had to take that cognitive demand and really focus on his task at hand. And so, you know, there's kind of, you know, I want to balance this out a little bit. There are skills that definitely need to be trained, and some are going to get more benefit out of certain skills than other skills. And knowing that is part based off the evaluation or based off just understanding who you are. But on the other side, the nice thing about this, I still have not found anyone that has been hurt by training their eyes and their brain.
Right. No injuries by doing any vision training.
You know, maybe a ball hit him in the eye or something. I guess I could say maybe an eye injury can happen. But, you know, for the most part, we're not straining our brain. You know, we're not pulling a muscle in our brain, and we're not having to go get, you know, hamstring surgery because of our brain training on there. And so it's such a great opportunity. And outside of sports, this might help them in school. It might help them in life. It might help them in dealing with a lot of different things. And I say might, really, a lot of times it is.
Yeah.
And, you know, I see kids all the time, you know, struggling in their sport, and they want to get better, and they're trying to figure it out. They don't know me. They don't know who I work with. They don't know if their parents bringing them to me. And once I show them how they see and how they perceive visual information, it starts tying in and starts going, oh, that's why I'm missing the ball off the plate. I don't see that like other people see it. Or right. I don't see the change in velocity because my eye muscles don't work the way Barry Bonds' eye muscles work.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
And my brain is not as fast as a Mike Trout, or my visual recognition, or my speed of eye muscles, or my accuracy of, you know, all these different things. There's so many different parts to this that make the athlete that can help them raise their game to another level. And just kind of get on this kick is, look, they all think it's a swing. They got to work on ball exit speed. They got to work on their angles. They got to work on their strength. And yes, they do. But I guarantee you that, back to this blood, sweat, and tears, they're wasting their blood, sweat, and tears instead of getting smarter and going, am I really seeing this?
Mm-hmm.
Can I see this better? Can I have a visual plan? And if that's breaking down, then we can go, oh, you know what? You're right. I need to work on my mechanical flaws on there.
Right.
But a lot of mechanical flaws get cleaned up when we clean up the visual side of things.
Yeah. No, and that's actually something that reminds me of what we encountered in the fall. We inaugurated this college partnership program, and we had selected in the fall 2 softball schools teams, and then 2 baseball schools teams, and across Division I, Division II, Division III. There was one particular player on a team at University of Missouri in St. Louis, who the coach said, you know, he's always somebody who would put the ball in play. But this fall, something crazy happened. I mean, I have the direct notes here. He said it was really impressive. He used to be just hand-eye, but now it's line drives and extra base hits. And he said, literally, it's been incredible to see him. Why? Well, I mean, we were doing customized training with him, and all of a sudden, he's getting this sense of really knowing where the ball's going to go and being able to connect that to, I mean, he wasn't like, you know, the strongest player, right? He was more of just like a utility guy. And all of a sudden, like, he's looking like a starter, right? And this is in his last season. He's going into his last season now, right? And it's those kind of, you know, I think, you know, stories and feedback that I think can illustrate for other coaches, whether it's the college level, whether it's for parent coaches that are on the call tonight, that, you know, if you can give your player, your son, your daughter, that kind of, you know, shot of confidence from a little bit of vision training, right? A little bit of working the brain, that can pay dividends in tremendous ways. And you know, on the what do you got to lose side, I think the point about injury is really funny because, you know, sometimes we get asked by, you know, by major league teams, even they'll ask us like, do we have to worry about mental fatigue? Like, are they going to be like, you know, too strained to play, you know, screen time and stuff? And I'm thinking like, are you serious? Like, this guy will be out for 2 months if he pulls a back muscle, right? But like, you're worried about him playing a video game for 5 minutes, right?
Which if he's not on the uHIT, he's on his phone. You know,
right? He's on WhatsApp, or he's on Instagram, or he's on Twitter, or whatever else, right?
He's probably having an argument with his wife, and his mindset's not ready for the game.
Right.
So, you know, we got other issues I think to deal with.
Right, exactly. But, you know, I mean, what we try to do is, you know, at least segment it off. Like, we don't tell them whether, you know, we don't have the vision into the brain, the, you know, the tap into the brain to say like, this person's distracted because he's fighting with his wife, or this player's distracted because, you know, something else is going on in his life. But we can tell you whether he's making decisions related to what he's seeing.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And so I want to remind everybody, though, on the call that you can ask questions too. I mean, we've gone through a few of the questions that were written in, but, you know, Ryan and I kind of get carried away here, I think, talking about this stuff. And, you know, we know it is, I think, entertaining and interesting to watch, but we want to hear from you guys too. So a reminder that the chat, you can activate by highlighting your mouse over the bottom. And if you want to enter any of the questions, the chat window will come up on the side of the screen. You know, feel free to fire away in these last kind of 10, 15 minutes as we start winding down. But you know, this is really a learning session for you all to obviously hear what Ryan does to slow the game down, hear how uHIT functions and how it shows you as you're getting better. But you know, I think what we've really, you know, centered on tonight is this difference between, like, you know, maybe you're not the strongest in your class right now, right? But you can make progress on these types of skills that will keep you moving in the game and keep you even excelling in some cases in the game. And that will be there when your body catches up with you, when you start getting stronger, right? If you're a youth athlete. I was actually asked about that specific topic once in an interview. And, you know, we really kind of rhapsodized, you know, brainstormed on that topic on, it was on an NPR station actually. And, like, you know, usually I don't try to improvise on NPR, but it really occurred to me at the moment that, like, wait a minute, we can keep so many more players in the game longer because they will be able to keep making progress in terms of being able to have that confidence to hit the ball on a regular basis. So if you're, you know, 9 years old, 10 years old, and, you know, you're thinking, I don't know if I want to stick with this or whatever, because, you know, I'm not connecting a lot, et cetera. I'm not hitting the ball the farthest, right? I'm not the fastest guy on the team. This is the way to keep that kind of confidence, is something that, you know, I talked to the interviewer about. And, you know, it's something that we're looking forward to seeing as more and more non-professional, non-college players use uHIT. But, you know, hearing like what we heard from this Division II school coach and his player who's entering his last year now, and all of a sudden he's barreling balls and he's got more confidence at the plate. You know, it's really exciting to see that. And we take our minor league players even who've been through a hellish year this past year, because, you know, some of them were kept, some of them were released. You know, we continue to work with them because we see that, you know, this, you know, I think possibility is still out there for them, that if they're able to improve this skill, they'll be able to get back into it, right? And maybe even have a shot at the show. So, you know, I mean, it's always exciting to show someone on screen like Jared Oliva with the Pirates, because, you know, he's kind of feels like one of our kids, you know, that you see as a double-A player and you see him kind of move along to get his first major league hit in this shortened season. But, you know, we really fervently believe, not because we're, you know, I think evangelizing about this, but really because we've seen how the brain works on this. We've imaged it, and we've seen other folks like Slow the Game Down, you know, who know this from more of the vision side and the practical application side, and from telling Charlie Lau how to see the spot on the slider side. And, you know, we really think that, you know, we can all make a difference on this. So I want to thank everybody for, you know, getting on the Zoom seminar tonight. Our uHIT Academy, we're going to have a whole winter program that's going to be announced in the next couple of weeks or so. But January, February, March, we're going to be having some seminars coming up. Some are going to be focused on this kind of topic of vision training, more of how the brain works. We're going to be interviewing a researcher that I know from my academic exploits. He just came out with a book with a British journalist about what makes elite athletes. And it doesn't just talk on vision training, but it's about other aspects they call in baseball makeup, kind of like psychological makeup. And other aspects. So that's going to be in January with Mark Williams and Tom Wigmore. They just had a book reviewed in the Washington Post. We'll be able to send that out to people ahead of time. But you know, these are the kind of things that we're going to be covering in upcoming uHIT Academy seminars. We're going to have another one focused on parent-player topics, where we're going to speak directly to parents of players whose son or daughter has been using uHIT, and they can give you their direct experience in terms of how they've been able to connect to their son, their daughter, and even we possibly are going to have a seminar too with some of our fall class of the college partnership program with the coaches, so you can hear directly from them really what they saw with their players using uHIT, and also the, you know, kind of the things that they had to navigate when it came to getting them to use it, or, you know, how to tell them, you know, when you do something on your phone, it translates to when you got your bat in hand. So I want to remind everybody that we do have links in the chat to the coach certification curriculum. Again, it's usually $35 if you do it tonight. Before we finish the seminar, it's only $20. And for our customized training with AI, that's usually $32 a month for your lefty or righty pitchers, pitch and zone recognition. But tonight you get the full first month off, $32. So you've got the links for that in the chat. Ryan, any particular closing comments on what we've talked about tonight before I wrap it up for us?
Yeah, I think, you know, for me, I really want the people to really understand that vision takes a huge, it's very important to this game. And it's not just letting vision be, but enhancing your vision in your brain and the neurocognitive side of things, you know. And, you know, I always kind of joke around, and I think I told you this, that I'm like the interpreter. I try not to get too scientific and talk about all the stuff that's going on, and it is fascinating. And I look back and go, God, if I know what I know now, or if I listened to my dad earlier, I might have studied neuroscience and, you know, got more involved in that. But it's really, you know, what it comes down to is performing at whatever sport you're playing and finding a way to, you know, focus on the task at hand, which is basically the ball hitting the bat. And if you're not recognizing, or you're not looking in the right place, if you're don't have the eye skills to do it, it's just a guess. And the more we can finally tune that up, you're going to give yourself a better chance to perform. And, you know, so I think, you know, again, for me, I look at a combination of things. I look at it as again, like the sensory expansion, there's a lot of tools, a lot of things we can do to build and get ourselves that visual confidence. And when you have visual confidence, you have mental confidence, and you have physical confidence. I guess, kind of in a nutshell, if anyone's got questions, I'd love to, any issues you guys have or any way to communicate anything, I'd love for you to reach out to me. You can reach me at Ryan at Slow the Game Down, or any of the social handles at Slow the Game Down, or NDV Performance. We've also done some, I call them visual insight webinars with a bunch of former players and former coaches that we call visual insights, that we have on YouTube for good information for you too. Good story.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll put in the chat the handle at Slow the Game Down so that everybody can find it easily. Yeah, no, and I want everyone to know that they can reach out to Ryan directly in the ways he just described. And then also if you want to ask us through any of the communications you've had in terms of the Zoom link sent or whatever, just reply to us and we're happy to connect you with Ryan. They're doing great work at Slow the Game Down. It's a tremendous legacy from his dad there. So we're happy to be involved, and, we're really excited about the NDV, initiative in terms of like connecting it to the education side. And, no one wanted the pandemic, but, it's been very interesting to see how formats like this have really, I think, helped a lot of people in baseball and softball weather the storm. And we're looking forward to seeing this really even continue, as the pandemic subsides and vaccines get out there and whatnot. And even as we start getting back out there and playing games, that we still have this channel for communicating and learning from one another to get those kind of results of, it's really impressive, or I've never seen anything like this. I never knew I could hit like this. I didn't realize what I wasn't seeing. And it really starts in this kind of way, but really, for the player themselves, it's from actually going through that kind of customized training, if it's uHIT or any of the Slow the Game Down regimens, and then working through that process. So I want to thank everybody again. Last chance for any questions, last chance for any of the specials that we are offering tonight on customized training or coach certification. But want to thank Ryan for joining us tonight from sunny California. And here it is very snowy, despite what you see behind me with, clouds and blue sky. But we got about 15 inches of snow in New York today. Anyway, want to thank everybody again, and stay tuned for the next uHIT Academy seminar coming up mid-January. We'll be getting you an email out to that. And if you do get an 833 number calling you in the next day or so, don't be shy. That is us. We're just checking to see if you got all the info you needed and if there's anything else we can help with. So want to thank you all again. Thank you, Ryan. And everyone have a good night. uHIT. Thank you.
Have a good night. Thank you.